Hello and welcome to The Swing. As always, it's your boy HK, and I'm joined by that guy Owais, as we're here every Tuesday, every Friday. Today at a new time, 9:30, but usually at 7:30. But as always, The Swing is here to go around the NBA world, breaking down all the biggest news, all the biggest highlights, all the stuff that you need to stay in the know about what's happening in the NBA world. And over the last couple of days, quite a lot has happened. Not only did we get the NBA All-Star starters announced as of yesterday, which, spoiler alert, Owais was really wrong on. I was right, but we'll get to that. More so than that, though, we're going to then take that opportunity to talk about not only the starters that did get selected, but now the fun part comes. Who is going to be playing off the bench? Because that's where you start to see a little bit of difference in opinion, start to see a little understanding about who goes where and what is going to happen. And more so than that, for those who joined us on the last episode, we had the incredible Tahir Khan with us, who shared just a ton of insights, just an awesome episode where we got to hear not only all about his incredible lifestyle, his incredible basketball journey, but also we did it in the prelude to what were two massive wins for the Toronto Raptors, going up against the Milwaukee Bucks, going up against them not once but twice, and on the second time doing it without their leader. What an incredible day. So we're going to get it all together to talk about that. And just before I get Owais to talk to me about how he's in his feelings about his all-star picks, I will tell you about our sponsor, Thrive Fantasy. For those who don't know, it is the premier and up-and-coming daily fantasy props app. So if you know how many points LeBron James is going to score tonight, is it going to be over 27? Is it going to be under? Is Embiid going to be dropping a monster double-double? Well, if that's the case, sign up on thrivefantasy.com and enter a number of different contests going every day using the promo code SWING when you deposit, and you will get your deposit matched 100% for up to $50. So definitely sign up, prop up today with Thrive Fantasy. But speaking of propping up, I think Owais might need a crutch to prop himself up after some of those all-star picks. What do you think about that, Owais? How's it going?
Listen, man. First of all, my all-star picks were amazing. Okay, any of those guys can make any all-star team at any point, whether it be in the reserves or the starters. Sometimes you just want to add a little bit of spice. Okay, that's what you want. But yeah, man, we've got an incredible episode for you guys today. So much to cover in so little time. So let's actually start by talking about this bad news. This bad news of our leader, Kyle Lowry, getting injured in the first game against the Milwaukee Bucks. So I'm going to show you guys really quickly what happened here. Unfortunate situation. However, we hear it's not necessarily as bad as we had thought. So if we go really quickly into this injury, as you can see, he was running, bumps into DJ Augustine and lands really awkwardly on his ankle. And right off the bat, he looked very uncomfortable. I tried to walk it off, even came back in the third quarter, but it just did not look good for Kyle Lowry. And, he's actually not playing today either and is questionable for who knows how many more games.
Yeah, apparently up to the next week he could be out, which, first and foremost, anytime your leader goes down, that's always something tough to recover from. That being said, Kyle is how Kyle always is, which is going to be, the engine that will always get his first opportunity to come back and be able to fight through any and all injuries. But that being said, that did not stop what was a pair of absolutely just incredible performances. First and foremost, we talk about the Milwaukee Bucks just being the kind of team that is built to try and make a championship run this year. But we've talked earlier in the year so much about how matchups matter. Just there are certain matchups that are clearly not to an opponent's benefits. We saw that last year with the Boston Celtics as far as the Toronto Raptors are concerned. Just having the kind of guys that are able to be in the right spots and defend the key players at the right time. And the fact of the matter is, the Raptors, for as much as Giannis's box score stats look good in both of the games, we frankly have him figured out. It's just in one of those scenarios where Giannis is essentially forced to go way, way outside of what really his capabilities are, which is to be just dominant in transition and to be just able to out-muscle you on the inside. But much like we had, our lessons from our playoff run, our lessons from our playoff series all the way against them, we just build that wall. We force them to go outside of it. And in the end, the Raptors, even without Kyle Lowry for the second half of that game, came away with what was an incredibly, incredibly impressive win, especially considering the fact that they did it on the back of the most disappointing loss of the season. So grit, resolve, all of that comes together to give them a very, very, very satisfying victory. What do you think of that first one, Owais?
Yeah, man, a lot of character building, a lot of identity, in identity realization, if you will. This Raptors team has always shown us over and over, like when it comes to the top teams, we're going to do the most to compete with them. And sometimes we do get a little loosey-goosey against some of the bottom teams, but you did not see anything there against the Bucks in these past two games. Right off the bat, a big shout out to Fred VanVleet for his leadership against the Milwaukee Bucks. You saw him when Kyle was down to be very vocal and actually showed a lot of emotion to the little mistakes, that we did see here and there within the defensive side or the offensive side of the Toronto Raptors. And that leadership is something that I feel like someone had to step up in when Kyle wasn't around. And Freddie doing that and showing that emotion, as he did mention in an interview prior to, this is after the loss against Minnesota, where you could see visibly he's frustrated, and he talks about the small little, details that they just got to hash out. And, they absolutely limited any of those brain lapses during these two games. And what a performance. If you talk about just defensively, the Toronto Raptors left Middleton, for example, to 7 shots in the first game, which is insane. You want to comment on that, or?
No, absolutely. Look, the Chris Middleton thing is something that, in my mind, that is absolutely what won you the game, because as much as we were obviously missing Kyle in that second half, they were missing Drew Holiday as well, which really leaves them with very little guard play in terms of, being able to create your own shot, and also just being able to kind of space the opposition out, because outside of if, Giannis is not creating that sort of disruption on the inside to get those guys open, you start to see where the faults really lie with the Milwaukee Bucks. And when we really force them to essentially have Chris Middleton be, the main shooting guy for you, it just wasn't the kind of matchup that he wanted, because we just kept the guys on him. And that really, first of all, is huge on OG, who was the primary defender on Chris Middleton. And you have to remember, this is the first game back for him from injury, and he just looked like he didn't miss a step. Because offense was obviously going to be something that comes back over time. But as far as his defensive versatility was concerned, and just his ability to stay in front of a guy who not only is lengthier than him, but has a pretty quick first step as well, was just borderline, just incredible. So just as Fahad is saying over here and joined, that was the first of just 2 absolutely massive, massive W's. And thanks very much for your comment. Yeah,
man. You talk about some of the guys that carry that defensive load, and one of them is 100%, OG Anunoby. And one of the things that we noticed with him being back is almost how much more guys like Pascal and Freddie were able to do on the offensive end. And you don't want to forget that defense is all about hustle, and it's all about the team defense. And, I felt like everybody stepped in and chipped in against the Milwaukee Bucks, especially against Giannis, Middleton, whoever else, always creating that wall to not let Giannis penetrate through And just what a way to pick them out and pick them apart. And Budenholzer had absolutely no idea as to what to do to get these guys going. But now we talk about game 2.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's perfect that you're talking about Mike Budenholzer, because I think that is, definitely starting to come under the microscope just more and more with every one of these passing games. Because first of all, the Milwaukee Bucks are 100% underperforming as far as the season on the whole is concerned. But coming, again and again into these scenarios where, Mike Budenholzer is pulling out his guys in key minutes just because he has this belief of about, the kind of minutes people should be running. And I guess you can call it trust in these other guys. But much like, even the Bucks commentators are getting onto it at this point where it's like, look, you get that you want to keep people healthy. You get that you want to keep people, not only engaged as far as the bench is concerned, but also just involved in knowing their role. At some point, you just got to be in there to try to win. And there were a number of scenarios that happened in this game, especially where the Raptors got onto their run and Milwaukee was just unwilling to shake from the units that they were putting out there. And, I saw this second loss coming just because of the fact that the only reason the first game wasn't a bigger blowout is because Pat Connaughton got off to such a hot start for the Milwaukee Bucks, dropping 20 points in that first half. And when he was held to single digits in this one, and, they weren't getting those same open kind of looks that they were getting early on in the first game, this was just an absolute clinic all the way through. And yeah, just even though Freddie himself didn't have a great game, it was picked up by Pascal, who has now put together just an incredible stretch.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I absolutely love, look at the way that Pascal's even attacking a guy like Giannis in the paint. That just shows how much more confidence he has with the ball in his hands, especially in the spots that he wants to be. Look at that nice little baseline drive on a guy like the other Antetokounmpo, which also I thought was really funny because he really was hype as soon as he got into the game. I don't know if anyone else noticed.
Yeah.
But it was just the only highlight for the Milwaukee Bucks in that game, if you will. But yeah, Toronto played great. Even on a defensive end, again, you saw a few blocks by, OG Anunoby. In the first game, you saw Boucher with that huge block on Brook Lopez as well as the game was close. And, another thing that has surprised me about the Raptors more as the season progresses is how capable they are of making really, really clutch shots in the moment that matters. So in the last 3-4 minutes, when the game's getting closer and closer, guys like Freddie step up. Even Pascal has been stepping up in those minutes and just scoring these insanely clutch buckets, whether it be and ones or these heat check threes. And you can see how the time and the reps that we were talking about earlier in the year are getting more and more smooth. The identity is getting better. And one guy that I want to mention in particular that a lot of people have been, ill talking about is Aaron Baines. But I will argue that I feel like Aaron Baines has also picked up a lot of his game. And, even if it's not showing up on the stat sheet so much, he is definitely having an impact as soon as he's in the game. And I personally think that, we have to cut these guys a little bit of slack. Because there's not enough practice time with the team. There's not enough bonding time with the team either. And so this has an impact on the game itself and the product that the Toronto Raptors have. Now, Ibaka, we talked about Ibaka being this central role. You have to remember, if it wasn't for Kyle Lowry in the Toronto system, Ibaka's career was pretty much done. He was in Orlando just as kind of trying to be that first option, second option. It just wasn't working out as well. But we pretty much resurged his career with the system that we created, right? And it took him 2 seasons to finally figure it out. Or otherwise, we were saying the same things about Ibaka as we are to Baines. But Baines has the disadvantage of not being able to practice with the team as much. And yes, you're right. Ibaka by far is the better choice in any circumstance.
I was going to say, I'm let's keep this comparison.
I know what you mean, but I'm just saying in terms of fitting in with the team, it did take Ibaka a while too. Okay, that's all I wanted to really say about that. So going forward, I'm hoping to see Aaron Baines either keep these amount of minutes or maybe get a little bit more. And hopefully stays a positive.
Yeah. And look, I mean, you can see that the Raptors are definitely, leaning more towards their smaller ball lineups now. And I think that is much more in line with kind of how the Raptors are saying. And when we say small ball, by the way, it's all relatively speaking, because we have lengthy guys that we are able to get switched onto that 3, 4, or 5 position, whether it be Siakam, whether it be Boucher, whether it be OG. All of these guys have the length to be able to stay in front. So it's not that you're necessarily going to get absolutely destroyed on the boards. And the thing is, they're just giving you so much more net positive as far as the amount of pace and space that they're able to bring onto the lineup. So as far as Aaron Baines is concerned, yes, I do think he has a role to play. Yes, I do think that, it's one of those things where it is time. But at the same time, man, the bunnies that he was missing last game, it was just like, dude, the kind of misses that this guy has at times are just absolutely baffling.
There was maybe one sequence where he had, one sequence that had 2 situations where he messed up the ball or had an easy layup that he missed. I get it. But overall, I feel like he's finally understanding where he needs to be and how he needs to play in order for them to be successful. And especially on the defensive end, kind of figuring out like when to hedge, when not to hedge, and just really protecting and using his physicality to his advantage. And yes, we're gonna, I don't have much more to say about the Toronto Raptors here. And we have a comment here from Arham Ahmed. He's talking about Jamal Murray. Point career night, looking like the Bubble Murray that we did have an episode on, a podcast from back in the day. You guys should definitely check it out. But Mr. HK, let's start talking about the All-Star picks for the starters, which had been announced, and also our picks coming soon. So let's start with the starters.
Absolutely. So for first and foremost, we did see that the starters were officially announced as of yesterday. And I'm not going to spend too much time on the picks here because honestly, most of them ended up picking themselves. We saw that it was very much aligned with how the voting from the fans was looking. So it's one of those, I suppose, rare scenarios in which we're seeing that the fans are actually aligned with the media as well as the staff in general, peers, media. So we got Luka Doncic and Steph Curry getting to start in the backcourt for the West. And then the front court has a 3-headed monster with LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Kawhi Leonard. Let me reiterate that. LeBron James, who is the team captain, by the way, and who Owais did not have on his All-Star team. So that's that. As far as the East is concerned, this is where I was just incredibly pissed off. For those who are following either the Swing Podcast on Instagram, following me on Facebook or any of those, the fact that James Harden did not get a starting lineup spot in the East is to me an absolute travesty. Even though Kyrie Irving has had an incredible season, definitely would be an all-star, and I would have had him in my picks otherwise. But he gets there with Bradley Beal in the backcourt, who is the scoring leader in the NBA at the moment. So definitely, despite Washington struggling hard, Bradley himself has had a monster season and deservedly gets an opportunity to start in the All-Star game for the first time in his career. And we get our big men. And when we say big men, we usually don't get to see big men get there. But Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo go ahead and highlight what is looking like a much more, should I say, balanced East versus West starting lineup. Usually because you got Kevin Durant on the other side, that changes a couple of things around. Obviously, when you have a player of that caliber just sitting and now playing on the East and as the East captain, what do you think about the starting lineups?
I mean, each one of those guys deserve to be there. You know what I mean? So even LeBron, surprisingly, Dame definitely, I feel like, you know what? It's hard to say that Dame got snubbed. He was going to be an all-star nonetheless, whether he be on the reserves or as a starter. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to have guys that absolutely, especially in terms of positions, I guess they have figured it out in that sense, but just guys that are flashy. So, like, again, you talk about that Harden versus Kyrie situation. Kyrie is by far a more flashy and fun player to watch as a starter, if you will. He's not always looking for that foul call, if you will. But at the end of the day, it makes for entertainment. I mean, you remember back in the day when the rookie sophomore season happened or the game happened, what Kyrie did to Brandon Knight. Oh,
Brandon
God.
Knight. Let's
Doesn't
keep
matter. Was it a show
right?
or was it not? It was a show. And honestly, that's what the fans want. That's what the fans need.
Agreed.
And it's an exciting time. So let me ask you a question really quickly because I'm still confused. Maybe someone else might be confused as well. For the All-Star game, there's going to be a fantasy draft, correct?
Yeah, just as there has been in the last couple of years, which to me adds a whole new layer of excitement to the All-Star game. Is definitely something that should have been done a long time ago, and I'm glad they finally got it on. So the two team captains, always LeBron, Kevin Durant, are going to go ahead and draft from the reserves that are going to be announced as of February the 23rd. So less than 4 days away to be able to find out just exactly who the reserves in the All-Star game are going to be. And, that always, first of all, just because, I think this year is just incredibly open as far as potential All-Stars are concerned. And we're going to get to that when we actually get to talk about our picks and who we potentially think is going to be getting in there. And we actually want to hear from you guys as well, because this is definitely where it gets most fun. The starters, fine. Even if there's people who would have potentially, been a starter versus a reserve. Fact of the matter is, there's no undeserving player that they're starting at the All-Star game. So, you know what? That's 10 guys we can go ahead and put to the side now. And now we have 14 more guys, 7 each from the East and West, that are going to be coming in there. And the best part of it is that you aren't limited by positions, and the fact that coaches are the ones that get to pick who are going to be the All-Star bench guys. That always makes it a little bit more, in my mind, fair, because as much as All-Star games are a popularity contest, it also is one of those things that is incredibly lucky. It's incredibly lucky as far as your career is concerned, but it's also one of those things that helps you build your legacy, because everyone will start to remember how many times you were an All-Star. LeBron James, 16 times All-Star now. He's always going to be just up there with some of the all-time greats, which is kind of leading into this question here, which we definitely can go ahead and talk a little bit about. But I just want to kind of preface this and put it aside, and I know Owais agrees with me on this as well, this idea of the GOAT, this idea of just one singular player that's just greater than all others. One, I find personally is a bit disrespectful to the amount of talent that we have gone ahead and seen. But just from the fact that, the game changes era from era, the players' diets, the players' athleticism, the way the game is played altogether just changes from era to era. It's hard to be able to just say that this guy is better than any other guy. What's the criteria? That's where I always come back to. Because if I'm to be honest on myself, there's a tier list. I have a tier list. And in fact, if you go back to one of our podcasts we did a while back, we kind of talked about how we had kind of this almost the way you talk about Mount Rushmore, right? This idea of tiers that have been created. And if I, off the top of my head, am to say there's a tier 1 of, greatest players, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those are the ones that, to me, jump off the top as my top 4, if you want to say, in my tier 1. Always what you take.
No, I agree with HK 100%. I mean, you can't really compare era to era. It's played very, very differently. Like, same goes for any other sport. You're not really going to compare someone who played let's say cricket in the 50s and was scoring immensely versus someone who's playing in cricket now, which is arguably a much more difficult game, right? So
changes. I mean, difficult, not difficult, bowling talent. There's just so many factors.
But if you were to ask me who my favorite players were, people that I absolutely enjoy and will root for every single time, Michael Jordan by far, is one of the guys that, you can't not watch and be like, wow, that guy dominated. We got Hakeem Olajuwon. I love that guy. The Dream Shake, big guy who absolutely dominated the league as well. We've got Kobe Bryant. That guy is my heart. And I always used to aspire to play like this guy, and more recently, Kyle Lowry, Rudy. That's my heart.
That's my guy. Definitely. But it's, as you said, it's definitely one of those debates that's going to rage on till the end of time, and it's not one that ever will have a definitive conclusion. People will always have their opinions, so it's just one of those where, it's out there. And Arham obviously has his opinion on who the GOAT is, and let's just say more than enough people will believe on that. But let's move on into the guys who are aspiring to be greats now.
Absolutely. So we're going to go right into it, ladies and gentlemen. I think if I can...
We can get that Excel sheet up in which we have our picks.
Can you see it? Are you able to see it?
I do not see it at the moment, no.
All right, I will share it right now.
There we go.
And this is a highlight. But this,
there you go,
gentlemen, is a pick. So over here on the left side, we have Harris's, East and West picks for the bench. And then on the right side, you have mine. So let's start by the East. We have 5 individuals right off the bat that we feel are pretty much we're in agreement of that we want these guys, which consists of James Harden, Zach LaVine, Malcolm Brogdon, Jayson Tatum, and Fred VanVleet. So if we take a look at some of these beautiful men, look at this, James Harden.
The beard. Let's not throw the fact off that he should have been a unanimous starter. Anyways, he has been absolutely insane for the Brooklyn Nets since arriving, leading the league in assists, just been absolutely awesome. And even more so since he joined the Brooklyn Nets and took that more of a facilitating role, even more so than he always does, averaging nearly 12 assists a game since he's come on to the Brooklyn Nets. And this has been in just incredibly tight games and incredibly big games. That Phoenix one was one where he led a 24-point comeback and was just absolutely monstrous down the stretch. So definitely deserving. Any comments, Owais?
No, nothing more than what you've already said. Only praise for, James Harden, the way that he's adjusted his game to really benefit this team. And, what a performance that was. But we're going to move on to the second guy in this conversation. And that's my boy, Zach LaVine. This guy has been dropping 30 and 40 like it's his day job. He's been shooting from beyond the arc. He's been, finding this post game that's been incredible in itself. And look at this dribble. He's absolutely changed his game around over the years to be this really elite scoring machine. And so, well-deserved. I hope he gets it. And just take a look at how good his body control is and the way he gets to the basket.
Absolutely. And just look, Zach LaVine, as I've said for many years in the past, has to me always been a guy that, has been almost an MC stats kind of dude. He's been one of those guys that has either, you can talk about injuries, you can talk about just different lucks that have gone against him. But frankly, he just hasn't had the kind of impact that he's having this year. And to me, that absolutely deserves recognition. And he is, to me, one of the key reasons why the All-Star game is so important to have this year. You give recognition to people that are playing above and beyond what they have in the past, and to have that all-star star next to your name, next to your career, it means so much for these guys that aren't necessarily perennial ones or have been in the past.
Absolutely. And so that makes us move on to our next pick. And this is a pick that not many people would have probably thought of, but we talked about it earlier. Malcolm Brogdon, what a performance he has put on for the Pacers this year. And if you look at their standings, part and parcel of why they are there is because of this one guy, Malcolm Brogdon.
And especially given the fact that they had so many injuries going alongside it. But more so than that, it was, to me, between him and Sabonis, definitely one of them were shoo-ins to be in an All-Star game. Sabonis did get rewarded last year for an incredible season, and he's having yet another one this year. But to me, Malcolm Brogdon has been the most impressive guard to me in the East out of those you wouldn't have necessarily expected. I'm not going to say I didn't expect it because I've been tooting Malcolm Brogdon.
We've been talking about him,
for a long time. But Malcolm Brogdon has just had one of those seasons that just begs to be observed. He is not only playing a very exciting brand of basketball because he's shifty. If you look at that pass, like these are
3 guys down.
It's so beautiful. Like Malcolm Brogdon has court vision that you just don't expect a guy like that to necessarily have. A guy who wasn't really celebrated coming in as a rookie, won Rookie of the Year, and it's probably one of those Rookie of the Years that people don't even remember. And then after that, has just been solid year after year after year. Had a 50, 40, 90 year, came into Indiana on a trade where I think Milwaukee is going to regret it for the rest of their sporting window as far as this one's concerned, because I think it may potentially cost them big. But Malcolm Brogdon, who has had an incredible season, averaging over 22 points a game, 7 dimes a game, great efficiency, get him in the All-Star game, get it there, boy, you deserve it.
Absolutely. Moving on to our next pick, of course, unfortunately at the cost of a rival, but Jayson Tatum. He is what we call a emerging, if not already a superstar. He stamped his identity onto the NBA last season, and just every season he just looks like more smooth, more comfortable, and a lot better of a player. And he's been showing us even this season how well of a player and how offensively talented this guy is. And boy, we thought he was like 6'7", 6'8" when he was first listed. This guy's 6'10" now.
Yeah.
That height and that smoothness is something that's very, very freakish, if you will.
He's been drinking that milk for sure. He's been getting taller, getting shiftier, getting more smooth. Just if anyone has a smoother step back in the game this side of James Harden, I just don't know who that is other than Jayson Tatum, because it's just gorgeous. Look at this. And it's coming too, but it's just absolutely unguardable. So quick with it, so shifty with it. And Jayson Tatum is our pick as an Eastern Conference All-Star.
Absolutely. And then it brings us to a hometown Toronto Raptors, Fred VanVleet. I think it's about time to give Steady Freddie one of the guys that got a finalist vote for the MVP of that.
Yeah, Hubie Brown.
My guy, Steady Freddie. He had this huge performance against the Orlando Magic. 54 points. That's a Raptor record. And just, his ability to not just play incredible defense, but also his ability to create shots when the Toronto Raptors have nothing going for them. What a leader, what a player, and he absolutely deserves an All-Star recognition this season.
Absolutely. And look, there's really one of any 3 Toronto Raptors that could very well get in to one of these All-Star picks. But again, to me, if it's one of those fringe picks, I want to reward the guy who is, first of all, to me, he's going to be an All-Star going forward, but a guy who hasn't been there before and is having such an incredible season, his first real season as a focal point. I would say he is our top option as far as offense is concerned, as much as Pascal Siakam may potentially be our leading scorer. When the chips are down, when we need a bucket, Fred is the guy that we look to, and the guy who not only helps stretch out the floor, but also leads the league in deflections and is second in the league in what's called hustle plays, the idea of diving for loose balls, the idea of just getting after it. So that kind of two-way capability. And I know we don't have the video here, but he had a rip off Giannis in last game where it's just Freddie's just saying, give me that. Just took it off him on one of Giannis's deadly Euro steps. Like, that's the kind of stuff that is just requires so much timing, so much talent, and just so much foresight as a defender to be able to pull off. So Freddie, well deserved as a potential All-Star, and we really hope on February 23rd he will be the one representing the North at the game in Atlanta.
Absolutely. Which brings us to some of the contention points. We have Harris picking from the Philadelphia Sixers, Ben Simmons?
Yes, sir. So first and foremost, part of it is just because of how well the 76ers have played. We just can't understate the fact that the Sixers, who not only are coming in under so much pressure as far as not playing up to what was expected of them, the standard that's been put, the process that's been done, the team that's been put together. This is supposed to be a championship contender through and through. And after getting swept last year in the first round by the Boston Celtics, they needed to come on and really show why they are as good as they're supposed to be. And that is being led not only by Embiid having an MVP type season, but Ben Simmons just continuing to get better in the half court, which is where I've always had my issues with how Ben Simmons has played, my issues with how he goes about, really slowing things down. But as you're seeing here, he is getting so much quicker with his decision making. He's always been an absolutely elite defender. And for a guy who is, pretty much on a triple-double watch on a nightly basis now, he absolutely deserves it. And even if it goes to Tobias, as I know you'll talk about on the other end, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But Ben's been good enough to get there.
Yeah, man. I mean, one of the things that I feel like helped Tobias in his game Ben Simmons in his game this year is actually Tobias Harris and the addition of two guys, Danny Green and Seth Curry, who have helped space out that floor in a way where, Ben's able to do whatever the hell he wants and get away with it. And so now we're going to go to Tobias Harris. Now, one of the things that I absolutely love about Tobias is the fact that, he was being misused for a number of years on the Sixers. Why? Because he's a mid-range specialist and someone who has a great back to the basket post sort of game. And that was taken away from him over the years, making him try to play as almost like a catch and shoot guy. But now he's back into that identity, like, hey, we're going to use you as a mid-range specialist, pick and roll, and look at this, almost absolutely looking more and more comfortable. It's not like anything looks forced anymore. And what a season he's been having, just from a point production perspective, but also the way he's been helping out the Sixers win the games. And I can't say anything more about how amazing he's played this season.
Yeah, nearly 21 points a game, shooting career highs, not only from the field, but 43% from the three-point line as well. And like you said, he is doing it more off the dribble now, which is much more comfortable for him, where I've always liked him when he was on the Milwaukee Bucks, when he was on the Orlando Magic. That is when he was at his most deadly, when he was getting the opportunity to penetrate and create some of that space, because he is sneakily tall, he's sneakily strong, while also having, as you said, that back to the basket game. So as I said, between him and Ben Simmons, basically one extra Philadelphia 76er needs to get in. So one of them can get there, and neither of them would I have a problem with.
Absolutely. And then that brings us to your pick of from the New York Knickerbockers. We got Julius Randle. Are you kidding me? The Knicks are actually in a playoff spot right now. This is crazy, ladies and gentlemen.
This
has really changed things.
This is one of those picks. First of all, I have always just slandered Julius Randle's game because he has just always been such a black hole on offense on every team that he's been on. But you know what? This iteration of Julius Randle, in which the New York Knicks are using him not only for what is now becoming just one of the most pesky defensive teams in the league, as far as the New York Knicks are concerned, with their length on the inside, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel, all these guys that are coming together and just being such a pest. But it's allowing Julius Randle to essentially be the main point forward, if you will, for them. And the fact that he's doing it at such a ridiculously efficient level, I didn't see it coming. I mean, I'll be completely honest. This season has caught me off guard. 48% from the field, 41% from three. Julius Randle shooting 41% from three, 80% from the free throw line. And he is another one of those guys that's just putting up numbers. And the thing is, he's putting up numbers in situations where they're actually winning, which is like, okay, you're going to put up 23 and 11 and 6. Okay, you're going to be an all-star this year, my friend, for a Knicks team that's, 14 and 15, fighting for that 7th seed, hanging around that bottom there. And I think they've got the chops to be able to stand there. And like I said, that improvement to that 3-point game of Julius Randle, get him in the all-star game. He deserves it.
I mean, kind words for a guy who's absolutely been a stud this season. Absolutely. Now, moving on to my pick for that last spot, and that happens to be Gordon Hayward.
Okay.
And we talked about this season in earlier podcasts that, Gordon Hayward is finally in a spot where, he can be the central player and, he can pretty much dominate the way that he dominated on Utah. And what a team to do it on. And, he's been so successful this year. He's been hitting everything. This is another one of those players that A, is a very smart player, but B, has pretty much every offensive tool in the kit, apart
Absolutely.
from catching balls when he's getting thrown to him on his face. But yeah, I mean, he's dominated, and it's actually been so great for the Charlotte Hornets, who actually have a decent team this year, and they're fighting for that playoff spot, and they have a very good chance to make the playoffs this year with LaMelo Ball. It is, we talk about guys, we talk about adversity, coming back from his injury and just being in a spot with Boston where he was misused and kind of put behind in the back burner with a guy like Jaylen Brown. He's finally given that opportunity, and wow, he is performing.
Absolutely. And look, this entire year has been so weird in terms of teams that are either performing, underperforming, because look, this 7th All-Star spot on the East is where I was most like, all right, who is most deserving to be able to get in? Julius Randle eventually won it out for me. Hayward is definitely in the mix. Trae Young is another one who was in the mix. I didn't give it to Trae Young just because to me, Atlanta has been so incredibly disappointing this year, and they don't deserve to have that sort of recognition, even though I think as much as I want one of, either Randle or even Hayward to get in, the fact that the game is happening in Atlanta, I just feel like they're going to get Trae Young in. Got to get that hometown cooking going. But Hayward himself has been absolutely on fire. And for a team that needs every last win to be able to try to get in an East where anywhere between 6 to 10 is like 2 games apart, things change on a nightly basis.
Right. And that pretty much wraps up our picks for the Eastern Conference. And if we go back and we look at now the Western Conference, there are 4 players that we did agree on, and they happen to be Spida Mitchell, Paul George, Damian Lillard, a.k.a. Dame Time, Devin Booker.
Yes, sir.
And then the rest are different. But let's talk about those 4 in particular. Let's start off with Donovan Mitchell.
No doubt. And I mean, Spida has just been, to me, the key guy alongside my later on pick for the Utah Jazz to lead them to what many would not have expected as far as their record is concerned. They are the number 1 team in the West. Read that again. The number 1 team in the West on a 9-game win streak. And Donovan Mitchell, who had so many critics, shut him up last year with that memorable playoff series against Jamal Murray we talked about earlier, and just put his name well and truly on the map. And he is taking that to the next level, even though his stat lines are very similar to what he was doing last year, but it's just coming up in so many more key situations for Spida. And just for me to see the growth of a guy who I think has the potential to be an absolute superstar in this league, they need to do it, and they need to continue doing it. And for all the haters like Shaq out there who are questioning the capabilities of a Donovan Mitchell, this is an absolutely, shut up season as far as the Utah Jazz are concerned. And I really am looking forward to what they do, not only for the rest of the regular season, but when the time comes in the playoffs, they are going to be a stud team to watch.
No, with that, we'll see. We'll see. Okay. We will see. Anyway, that leads you to the next guy, and who is?
We are going next to PG-13, who's just continuing to, again, we talk about redemption stories. We talk about guys who really needed to kind of reestablish their name after Pandemic P became such a slanderous nickname.
That's a bad shot.
I mean, it was well-deserved for how badly he was playing in the bubble last year, and how he pretty much was one of the key reasons why the LA Clippers just shut the bed last year against Jamal Murray and Jokic. So for Paul George to have what is essentially now, a 50, at one point he was having a 50-50 90 season, but he's having a 50-40 90 season now on just incredible numbers. His only issue is health, but as an all-star, he is in 100%.
100%. You talk about, the disrespect that this guy has been given, and rightfully so, but that doesn't dismiss the fact that this guy was elite when he was on Indiana and can create. You see what happens when you finally get to change the way that, a player is used. With Doc Rivers, he was more used as a catch and shoot sort of guy, but now you see he's more of a facilitator, or like he's heavily on ball, and it has completely changed the outlook of the Clippers, and it's completely changed the way he plays the game, and he's more comfortable, and he's just been scoring on a tear. Hopefully he stays healthy just to see where the Clippers go this postseason. Definitely an all-star.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, in a season where there are only at the moment 12 teams that are above 500, let's get that here. 12 teams out of 18 that are above 500. The LA Clippers, who are sitting right now at 21-9, third in the West, in the mix to be able to get into the top there, deserve that second all-star, and Paul George is that guy. Moving on to another guy who gets in purely from deserving of not only how well the Phoenix Suns are playing, but also just from himself having yet another incredibly efficient season, which is now leading to wins on a team that is much more built to utilize his talents to their absolute best when it comes to Chris Paul facilitating. But that is Devin Booker. Talk to me about Devin, because he has been nasty.
Wet like book, baby. You used that reference last year in the bubble.
I did.
And, can we finally see Devin Booker make an appearance in the playoffs? We hope, but if one thing, he will make an appearance once again as an all-star. And, he's just, there's no debate around here. So yeah, I have nothing much more to say.
Yeah, I mean, remember last year he only got in because Damian Lillard unfortunately got injured, and he was the injury replacement, which, I mean, look, I can understand just there's difficulties to get all these guys in at times, but Devin Booker is a guy who has been just criminally slept on with regards to understanding his superstar status. This idea that because the Phoenix Suns had been so bad for so long that it was somehow because of Devin Booker putting up empty stats or Devin Booker himself not being good enough to be able to be recognized as the superstar that he is. But this guy, after the 8-0 bubble last year, came out just absolutely business. And on a season where he's averaging 24, 4, and 5 on nearly 50% shooting, absolute stud, absolute all-star. Let's move on to our next and actually final agreed upon Western Conference all-star, which is
Enes Kanter. What?
Enes Kanter's boy, Dame Time. And
yeah,
boy,
man, absolutely. Dame Time, he's been one of the most clutch players in the NBA for a number of years. And, there's not much more to say. If you have a guy by the name of, with a nickname called Dame Time in this entire animation, it's game over right there. He should be an all-star for the rest of his career.
Look, Dame is, apart from being one of the most exciting players to watch, it's just the smoothness and the stoic nature in which he does it that always gets to me. It's just like a day job for him. He puts up these insane buckets, and it's like he didn't even break a sweat. So, I mean, that kind of swag obviously will get you fans as far as his fan following is concerned. So not only must be because he's a rapper, right? Just dropping.
He's a rapper, and he's a fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin, okay? That's why Austin 316, but when it comes to the game, baby.
Insane. And especially the fact that they are going to be out with CJ McCollum for at least another couple of weeks, 4 to 5 weeks altogether. And he is even better in that time. The Portland Trailblazers have gone on to 18-10 now, 4th in the West, putting up, just tough matchup win after tough matchup win. And that's being led by Dame Time. So what a season so far for Dame. Can only hope we see it keep going. Dame himself is one of those guys that has yet to really have that signature playoff run. Yes, he had one Western Conference All-Star one, but to get essentially swept in that one isn't really, living up to what you expect the Portland Trailblazers to be able to do, being with one of the most dynamic backcourts. So hoping that this season can be a little bit more dynamic for the Portland Trailblazers, but at the very least, we're going to see Dame in the All-Star game. We hope. I mean, it should absolutely be there. So this is now where we get into a little bit of contention. So should we start first and foremost with one of your boys, one of our boys that used to be on the Toronto Raptors, one who's unfortunately, by the way, RIP, father just passed away today, and DeMar DeRozan posted a very heartfelt message about, the kind of support that his father gave him during that period where he was most vulnerable, really getting him to the man that he is today, the basketball player he is today. But Owais thinks he's going to be an all-star. I don't. Owais, tell me, why do you think he's in?
Well, you take a look at what DeMar's been doing on the Spurs. He's absolutely changed that identity from being somebody, a team that, no one really would look at as a difficult team to play against. But he's been a facilitator. He's been a scorer, and he's also been a leader on that team. And he's put up countless buckets in the clutch for this team to even be considered, competitive, right? And I think he's the core of that team and absolutely deserves to be an all-star. There's no question to me. There's absolutely no question to me.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, look, the Spurs are definitely hanging around in that playoff bracket. And we talk about potentially, rewarding teams that are in that scenario. But really, my problem with the DeMar DeRozan pick as far as an all-star is concerned is just purely a statistical one. He's having a mostly middling season, about 19, 4, and 5. It's good. It's there, but it's really by committee that the Spurs are beating you. Dejounte Murray's having a great season for them. Keldon Johnson, who's their rookie, is really showing through. And, he might very well get in if you are looking purely to reward a winning franchise. But I just think, in my mind, there are more deserving players this year to get in. And let's start first and foremost with Rudy Gobert being that guy to be able to get in. Again, one of those ones that Shaq hated on. I don't know what Shaq is talking about, what he's thinking, but Rudy Gobert, the Frenchman, the Stifle Tower, has been an absolute monster on the defensive end as always. But more so than that, he's also getting much more involved on the offense. Just dropped a 23-20 in the last game that the Utah Jazz just had, is averaging career highs on not only his scoring, but also his offensive rebounding as well. So it's just been an incredible year for Rudy Gobert, a guy who just got rewarded with his big extension. And for a guy who is perennially in that defensive player of the year conversation because he's just so dominant on that end. At the same time, like I said, the Utah Jazz been the best team in the West. To me, it would be a disappointment and, in fact, a robbery if they did not get two representatives for the kind of performances that they've been having in a tougher conference.
Yeah, man, if you take a look at just his game and how he's been playing differently this season, he's just been great off the pick and roll, but also just the way that he cuts to the basket now is a lot more effective than we've seen over the seasons. And, I can't say much more. I mean, look at the record that the Utah Jazz have, and you got to respect that. Do I like Gobert? No. Do I think he is this insanely great player? No.
Wow.
But, hey, he is a key part as to the success of the Utah Jazz. And absolutely, if you talk about people that deserve it, he's definitely one of the reasons. So move on from this boy to another Utah Jazz guy, if we will. A little bit of a sleeper pick, if you will. But I absolutely love him because he's
forget sleeping. You straight up unconscious with this one.
I love. Okay, listen, Jordan Clarkson. You talk about guys that haven't been able to probably won't have that opportunity to ever be an all-star. Okay, and then you look at his season. He's probably up there in terms of a six-man for the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jordan Clarkson has been efficient. Imagine, just think about that for a second. Jordan Clarkson and efficient have never been in the same sentence, and he has this season. And he's also a huge reason as to why the Utah Jazz are top seed. So I'm a very, very proud guy to announce that I think that Jordan Clarkson should be an all-star this season.
Yeah. Well, I think this is so far out to lunch that if Jordan Clarkson gets in, I'm going to buy you lunch for that one. We're putting this on. It's on the thing. If Jordan Clarkson gets in, HK is going to be giving some Baba's Bites over to that guy Owais for this pick because it is out there. That being said, I do think that Jordan Clarkson is definitely in the running when it comes to not only sixth man of the year, but also in that running for most improved player. So, shout out to Jordan Clarkson for what has been a very, very impressive season. 18, 4-4. As you said, 45% from the field, 39% from the three-point line. Not what I would have necessarily expected. Wouldn't get him in the All-Star game. I think that's a bridge too far for Jordan Clarkson out there. But much like you're muted right now, Jordan Clarkson is going to be muted for the rest of the Utah Jazz's potential All-Star picks.
I have a really great guest right now who just wants to really quickly talk about his picks for the All-Star game.
Oh, really?
We have no one other than the notorious TK, Mr. Tippy Kirmani. Please join me here on this green chair so you can absolutely let the fans know. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know who this guy is, he is the legend himself.
Hello, the Swing podcast members. What's up?
What's going on, people? So talk about who you think deserves to be an all-star both on the East and the West in terms of the bench.
In terms of the bench, well, the East, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. Personally, you go with obviously Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum.
Jayson Tatum, okay.
100%. Who am I missing here? We got Senior Brogdon. We got Sabonis,
okay, yeah.
So we have 4 right there. So we got 2 Pacers, 2 Celtics. I'll give a Raptor. I guess that'll be nice.
Wow,
so I'll give
so
it
kind.
to VanVleet,
Okay.
I guess. I don't like Raptors, but I guess I have to support one
So
of them.
why are we talking to him?
I don't know. You invited me. So those are 5. Who am I missing? What team? We got... Do you want to be somewhere random? Sure, let's put Hayward and...
Tobias Harris, right?
Nah, not Tobias Harris. Let's put for fun Hayward and LaVine.
Ooh, Hayward and LaVine. You know what? That's not so far off what we did have there. I don't think any of us had Jaylen Brown, but definitely, we are going to post not only my picks, not only that guy Oasis, but we're also going to pick that guy TK's picks onto our Instagram page as well as our Facebook one. Let's see who is going to be the shawarma champion at the end of this. Getting all
my West ones now, right?
Yes, sir. Well, before we do, we will get Talha's West ones in. But why don't we get that screen up again of what our picks were so far, just so Talha can get an idea and just tell us, which of those you plain and simple disagree with. Because if we have ones that are the same, we're good.
So here we go. We're taking a look, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. I definitely agree with Donovan Mitchell, Lillard, George, Booker, yes. DeRozan, no. Davis, not this year. Gobert, yes. I think you guys, both of you are missing CP3.
Interesting. I will disagree with you, but interesting pick nonetheless.
I definitely think CP3 gets in. DeFrozen.
Hey man, we don't disrespect the Toronto man like that, all right? He is DeMar, Debo, Mr. I am Toronto. Number 10, DeMar DeRozan for life. I don't think he's an all-star this year, but solid pick regardless to be able to get in. But we see that there are 2 guys on there that are definitely of contention that we need to talk about. First of them being Anthony Davis, which I don't understand how, first of all, anyone can deny that he should be in just based on the fact that the LA Lakers are in the top 2 seed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're going to – how do you
I'm not denying that. I'm just saying –
he's played enough games. He's 23-9, still having 2 blocks a game, still with great efficiency. Even if you want to consider it a down year, let's put this into perspective. That's still better than 99% of players in the NBA.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all. If AD was healthy, he would be in my All-Star pick. The only thing is you don't know if he's going to be healthy by the time the All-Star game comes around. So why, if you already know he's going to be injured and replaced by anyone right away, it's just for his ego right now that you know that, yes, he's an All-Star. We know he's an All-Star. We're not denying he's an All-Star. It's just, why would you do that to someone else when you know for sure if he's not going to be healthy for the All-Star game, put him there, then replace him. If you already know he's not there, so might as well not have him there.
Well, my argument against that will be similar to what I said earlier, that all-star picks have a lot to do with the legacy that you leave in the NBA. It matters how many times you were an all-star. It matters how many times that you get that honor when you get to the end of your career, talking about your credentials as a Hall of Famer, talking about your credentials amongst the all-time greats. So why are we taking away a year of all-star prowess from a guy of Anthony? Well, give him. You want him to be replaced on injury? Fine. Get him the all-star and then replace him, but give him that honor.
It's not like that Derrick Rose year where you get an all-star, you get an extra $5 million or something. I believe he had in that contract. So unless Anthony Davis is getting some, massive contract boost from being an all-star this year, it's okay.
You do. There are contract benefits that come with this, but Anthony Davis, to me, should absolutely be in alongside, before we get to my boy Owais' last contentious pick, another big man that is being just slept on. I don't understand. Why is no one talking about Zion anymore? It's like LaMelo came in, everyone's talking about him as Rookie of the Year, and all of a sudden, no one wants to talk about a guy who is averaging 25 points on 62% shooting. Zion Williamson has been an absolutely dominant force. He has been everything that was advertised as far as individual performances are concerned, whether the Pelicans themselves are as a combination of injuries, as a combination of just not gelling together, not getting it done, doesn't take away that if we're letting Bradley Beal start on a all-star game in the East with the Washington being absolutely doo-doo, get the Pelicans Zion Williamson in.
Speaking of, I think my contentious pick then would be John Wall.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough from TK today. But absolutely, I mean, Zion Williamson has been having a great season. That's no one is disregarding that, and I think that if as one of those like bottom picks within that, I guess list of guys that could potentially make it in the bench, you can argue he'd make it too, right? So I have nothing against that pick, but we can go to my pick, which is probably a better pick. Okay?
And that is
about Swipe of the Fox. What a comeback season. He's been having injury issues like every single season. And then he's coming back this season so much more mature, so much more exciting, and so much more controlled. And maybe, I don't know if it's the hair or if it's something else like that.
I miss his old hair.
But, he's just been absolutely dominant and playing some great, as you can see, both defensive ball and offensive ball. And I think he absolutely deserves to be an all-star this year.
Yeah, and look, we talked about in 2 podcasts ago players that have been impressive and outstanding and not getting that recognition. And I'm the one who called out De'Aaron Fox, not only as the fastest end-to-end man in the NBA when it comes to pure pace, but just in general, his shiftiness, his maturity, his capability on the offensive end. To me, it's all about record when it comes to these later on picks. And then if it's not record, then it comes down to someone who's having just an incredibly outsized season. And even though De'Aaron Fox has been incredibly good, incredibly solid, and to me is one of the reasons why the Sacramento Kings do have some sort of a bright light in their future, this year, Zion Williamson is that kind of fringe pick between them, and I think Zion's going to win out, but got no problem ever with De'Aaron getting it.
Well, I guess, ladies and gentlemen, you have it from us 3 over here, who we think should be the all-star bench for this upcoming all-star game. We want to know what you guys think. We'd love to see some comments. If you watch this on a rerun or something like that, you can absolutely comment with your picks, and we'll get to commenting on that with you. We'd love to share this basketball conversation with our community. Osama talking about Tatum, of course.
Mr. P
talked about this boy. Put the highlights back on, if you will. But these guys are all incredible players performing at the highest level of basketball. And so if any of these guys make it, we should be excited to see an incredibly entertaining all-star game this 2021, another COVID season.
Absolutely. And especially given the fact that it's going to be a very quick turnaround as far as that All-Star game is concerned. You're going to have the 3-point contest, the skills contest happening right before the game itself. And then at the halftime, you're going to get the halftime show being the dunk contest. So it is going to just be an absolutely action-packed March 7th in which we are going to get the All-Star game in Atlanta. Once again, the reserves are going to be announced on the 23rd of February. I know we haven't done one of these challenges as of late, but clearly the shawarmas are now on. Maybe I'll get Mr. P in on it too. Mr. P, I need you to give me your list. Give me your list of who you think are going to be the reserves on the East and on the West. And we're going to put that all up on our Instagram page. All four of us, this fatal four-way showdown where, of course, HK is going to win. But we are going to get that up there. We're going to see who is right. And with that, we come to the end of what was an incredibly exciting episode of The Swing. Thank you, Talha, for coming in guest appearance. Thanks Owais. Thanks to my beautiful Kawhi poster in the background. And thanks to all of the viewers, as always, joining us live, giving us your comments, giving us your interaction. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Swing Podcast, and also follow us on YouTube, where not only do we go live for all of these Sports Trends episodes, which happens on every Tuesday, every Friday. We try to do it 7:30. We may have to move it around slightly based around other shows that do go on Sports Trends. But we love the interaction that you give us, and we love the opportunity to come do this for you. And we will see you on Tuesday with the All-Star pick results. As always, it's The Swing, that guy Owais, it's HK, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.